That was Dimmu Borgir, the Serpentine Offering from their album In Sorte Diable. I have used Dimmu now a number of times, will continue to do so. Certainly there are a number of fantastic bands, songs of which I could use for this show and most definitely will do so at some point. Dimmu has become inadvertently a kind of house band for this podcast. The music has become a kind of theme that I will continue to use until I grow tired of it. But great band, and actually they have a number of their live shows. They incorporate a complete live orchestra that plays along with them, and that is really something to listen to. I don't know of a lot of bands that do that or can do that, but Dimmu does, and it just sounds wondrous. Um, the images that I've been using are pulled from the box art for Conflict of Heroes, for those of you that don't know, and as a result, one might surmise that I am a fanatical nut when it comes to the Conflict of Heroes game series. That is not the case, though I am a fan of the game and own both Awakening the Bear and Storms of Steel. I am also a fan of the box art, so that is why I have used that in this show. This show's particular image comes from a game Academy Games has yet to release, First Man In, and some good stuff. I've got a couple more images in the storehouse, more of the same that I'll be using in future shows. And when that runs out, I will obviously resort to something else. But again, I wanted to stick within some sort of thematic framework, and image-wise, this does it for me. I am Jason. This is Hexes and Soldiers, episode number 2, Monday, November the 11th, otherwise known as Veterans Day. And for those of you who have not done so yet, I encourage you to reflect on those veterans who have fought for what they believe, for various causes. Keep them in mind. The saying goes, you do not have to be for the war, but you should support the troops. Or, if you're Mr. Bill Hicks, you can be for the war, but against the troops. Either way, show your support for the veterans. I think the Doolittle Raiders gave they've called will be their last public gathering and speech. The Doolittle Raiders raided Tokyo. These guys are in their mid to late 90s, so when it comes to World War II, our veterans are aging fast, and at some point we will lose living voices of this historic epoch that is World War II. Hard to imagine that time has gone by so quickly and that these guys will no longer be able to lend their voice and memory to the events that occurred throughout that war. I'll give some shout outs here to Brother Brian, Elliot in Florida. Elliot, good friend of mine that has played many a game with me before he moved, and many a game that came down to the wire, to the last individual soldier, to the last unit, edge of your seat, nail-biting moments that just made for exciting gaming. Thank you, Elliot. Jason from Advance After Combat, and Marshall and Dave, I believe it is. You guys are doing still wonderful work. Keep it up. I'd like to give a shout out to the entire Advance After Combat Guild, which I'm now a part of. Vladimir TC, Eric Ortega, M. Douglas Line, Spencer Armstrong, and the 1,200 members of the Advanced Squad Leader group on Facebook. And I'd like to say that, hey, Greg Wheeland, I am not a spy. Trust me. The Big Board. And finally, a big thank you to Robert Zinselmeyer for his open invitation to play ASL with the St. Louis crew. That is greatly appreciated. And before I get into the top 10 of the week, I'd like to share something with you briefly. Uh, we gamers are Tibetan monks, playing and meditating over the sand mandalas that are our games. With calculated maneuvers, we paint our maps with a vast palette of counters, shifting and manipulating them so that they continuously change form, and from this art, come to know ourselves through our tactics. So anybody that thinks that gamers aren't artists, just repeat that, and hopefully they will shut up. So now, top 10 of the week. And what do we have? Oh, looky here. Uh, gee, that one game is still perched atop everybody else. God knows why. It's not even teetering. Doesn't even look like it's going to fall. Well, that's fine. We'll just ignore it. Which brings us to Paths of Glory, our first entry. And Paths of Glory, designed by Ted Rasier. And interestingly enough, coincidentally, Ted Rasier has been pulled onto the Shenandoah Game Studios crew, and he is designing a game for them called Roads to Moscow, a Eastern Front game. Of course, Shenandoah Studios, celebrated and probably most famous at this point for their Battle of the Bulge game, and they produce computer games that are designed specifically for the iPad and iPhone. I have recently purchased my first iPhone, and I must say I'm quite happy with it, and may in fact bridge the gap that is computer gaming and try one or two of these Shenandoah games on my iPhone because they are doing good things and I would like to support them, though I hope this does not detract in any way from my conventional wargame integrity. So, Paths of Glory, number 2, Combat Commander Pacific. I don't believe that game has budged. Good for them. Number 3, Here I Stand, which admittedly I know nothing about. Number 4, D-Day at Omaha Beach. This is a solitaire game and published by Decision Games in 2009. Designed by John Butterfield. Won the 2009 Charles S. Roberts Award for Best World War II Game. 2010 Golden Geek Best Wargame nominee. And it looks good. The thing looks good. I like the solitaire idea, as in the last podcast I play most of my games solitaire, so this is my cup of tea. I haven't played it though. I'm very curious about it. Anybody that has played it, and that goes to say anything comment wise, feel free to post a comment below this show in the comments section. And anybody that has played this, I'm curious to know how it plays. If it plays as good as it looks, is it worth my time? Hit me up with a line and let me know. I'd appreciate that. And then again, any other comments anybody wishes to alert me to, feel free to do so. Hannibal Rome versus Carthage, number 5. A game that I once owned, and I assume somebody is happily playing my once owned copy as I sold it recently. Never played it. Don't have much to say about it. Combat Commander Europe, number 6. And if I ever stick my toe into the Combat Commander series, it will be with the Europe game, just simply because I'm more of a fan of the European theater than Pacific, as I've already mentioned. Napoleon's Triumph, number 7. Now, I suggested that if you don't have this game, go get it. Now, a week later, if there are any of you out there that still don't have this game, I don't know what to tell you. You love living in misery, I guess. You want your life to be horrible and awful and miserable, because you don't want to get this game. That's all I can say, because there's no reason you don't have this game, and it is just get it. The game will speak for itself. It will sell itself. It can do more for itself than I can ever by way of description. Um, but the designer, Bowen Simmons, he's designed a few other things now. He's designed Guns of Gettysburg, which I own, and Bonaparte at Marengo, which is Napoleon's Triumph's predecessor. And side note regarding this game, the designer has worked in road movement, and regarding that, congestion. So you can only move in a turn a certain amount of troops over a certain space, and this is to reflect the congestion that occurs when moving large bodies of troops over the road systems. And this is an interesting thing, if no other reason, because I've been reading a book called Beyond Monsters and Clowns, The Combat SS, Demythologizing 5 Decades of German Elite Formations. And a lot of that stuff is just dry, brittle reading, but there are some juicy things in there. And among one of them, I came across this congestion regarding road movement, and I'd like to share something with you from that book. And the author, Carl H. Thiele, or Thiele, T-H-E-I-L-E, he says it took an infantry division on foot roughly 2 days to cover a 35-mile distance. Now this is regarding World War II. Took an infantry division on foot roughly 2 days to cover a 35-mile distance, and no one else could use the road. And the same distance, however, could be covered by 3 panzer divisions or 4 motorized infantry divisions in dry weather conditions. And that immediately made me wonder how many of these games incorporate that into their design, because I don't come across that within the rule system much, if ever, other than this Bowen Simmons rules. Now, I don't know if that's because it's abstractly worked into the game and we just don't see it on the surface, or what, but I'm playing Blitzkrieg Legend, and I'm moving masses of units along roads, and this effect never arises. Now, is that because it's worked into the game, or is it neglected? And I shudder to think that it's neglected, because it seems like a very important thing to consider in designing a game. So I don't know. Maybe, again, somebody could let me know if there's other games that have that worked into it, or what, but I find that interesting. Number 8, Virgin Queen. Again, a game I know little to nothing about, so moving right along. Number 9, Commands and Colors Ancients. When it comes to the Commands and Colors system, I prefer the Napoleonics, as I mentioned, and more. The Commands and Colors Napoleonics is a block game. Those blocks sit idle when I play it. That is because I have about 4, maybe 5 copies of Risk. And these Risk games come with the little Napoleonic looking figures. They look like little miniatures, guys, tiny things. And I have based and painted entire armies to be used to represent either the British, the Portuguese, obviously the French, and the Russians. So when I play, I have visible figures, troops on the board, and the board is even has been modified. I spent quite a lot of time doing this, but I cut out hexes, and I do 3-dimensional terrain that I move these guys across, and it is, I'll toot my own horn, it's pretty cool to look at, and it makes the game, it gives the game that much more flavor. And the system itself is fine. I mean, it is a great system. It's simple, but deep enough to hold your attention, and the scenarios are done with care and a little bit of historical research. But to do it this way is really a treat, and I enjoy doing it. Let's see, number 10, War of the Ring, the first edition, a game that is collecting dust as far as my possession of it goes. Number 11, Maria. I assume, actually, if I remember correctly, that is a, what is that? Is that a variation of the Frederick game? That Euro game Frederick? I think it is. I own, or I used to own Frederick. I sold that too. Anyway, I think it's similar to that. Well, that is 11, and then 12 for Crimini's. Advanced Squad Leader cannot, for some reason, break into the top 10. I want nothing more than for that game to break into the top 10. It should be, as I've said before, in the number one spot. It should be able to easily dislodge that thing that is stuck at the top of the tree and knock it off, but it hasn't done so yet. And then right behind that, we've got up front. Both these games should be able to break into the top 10. Advanced Squad Leader should be in the top 5, if not the top spot. And yeah, I'm biased to this game, okay? I get that. But even from an objective, as much as I can be objective, perspective, this game needs to be in the top position for 10,000 reasons. And I won't go into them at this moment, but as shows go on, these reasons will become hopefully more and more clear. So there's your top games of the week, and it doesn't look like those budge much. Now, I don't know how Board Game Geek, which is where I get these, I'm not exactly certain on how their voting system works, or their rating system that determines which game is what. I don't know if it's number of views or likes or I don't know what it is. But I'm starting to become suspect a bit of the system, because as I said, there are things that are not moving, and it isn't just this past couple weeks either. This is over a period of months, and I find it a little hard to suspend belief and think that that's just the way it is. Either way, that's the top games of the week, and we'll leave it at that. Now, what have I been up to? What have I been up to? Well, a lot of the same old stuff. As I said, I got my iPhone. I've been fiddling with that. Blitzkrieg Legend. I'm trying to end the southern scenario. The French have amassed a wall in front of the Germans in an attempt to keep them from breaking further west. In doing so, they've weakened themselves in a kind of center area that the Germans will most likely take advantage of and breach and exploit, and probably go around rather than slam head on into these French that have positioned themselves before the Germans. Hope to have that game wrapped up before the airing of the next podcast, and hope to have another game started. Now, I don't know if I'm going to stick with the OCS series. Having just recently learned it to the extent that I can play it is quite rewarding, so I'm reluctant to just toss that aside and learn something completely new, because I did put so much time and effort into learning it. I'd like to utilize what I've learned. So it may be another OCS game, or it may be something completely off the wall. You never know. I'm a strange guy. The move to New Orleans is still a go. I've been trying to streamline my game collection, and I have narrowed it down to the core Victory Game, Avalon Hill, GMT, MMP, ASL stuff. Of course, ASL, I probably have 30 pounds worth of map boards, rules, binders, scenarios, boxes, counters, Plano storage counter trays, the whole nine. I've all that stuff. That's going, and a handful of other games, but I have reluctantly been forced to store a number of games, and it makes me feel ill. Why have this stuff if it's going to sit in a basement? But I have also let go of a lot of things. I put a lot of things on eBay and sold them, mostly the handful of Euro games that I am so reluctant to play. Spent maybe 2 hours Saturday putting stuff online for sale. In fact, I think I put a Market Garden game on there, and it was the old double blind system where it's really a two-player game. You cannot play this by yourself unless you're completely like schizophrenic or have multiple identity disorder or something. I don't know. You got to be disassociative or something. Otherwise, you need another person to play this. That's up there, and I don't mean to plug a game I put on eBay, but it was just for instance. So I have some games on eBay that I'm going to get rid of because you can't take it all. I got a Pontiac Grand Prix, and what's going to New Orleans is what I can fit in there. Okay, so got to have the computer. You got to have clothes, unfortunately, and whatever room is left will be stuffed with games. So the entire trunk, almost the entire back seat. Doubt I will be able to turn my head and look through the back window. Hope I don't get pulled over for that. It will be overflowing with games. So that is that. And interestingly enough, or not, I haven't talked to my girlfriend in a while. She has decided that we shouldn't talk for a few days. And I tell you, relationships are the ultimate war game. You can't win, and there's no rule book, so you don't even know how to play the thing. And it's ultimately just as rewarding as a relationship can be. It is equally frustrating. So that is that. I'd be interested to know what you guys have been up to, what you guys have been playing, what's on your table. Hit me up and let me know what you guys are up to. So, in the news, I have, believe it or not, attempted to contact a select group of game designers, and I did this on Board Game Geek. Okay, I compiled a list of my game designers that I think are the most important, that I hold above the rest, and I go on there and I send them maybe a 3-4 sentence message telling them that I host a podcast and the listeners might be interested in anything new they got going on project-wise. No harm intended. Actually, Dan Holte, the guy who did, he did the Battle for Normandy, I believe. He actually was the first to answer, and he mentioned his Supreme Commander game, and wow, I thought, hey, that's cool. This guy took a second out of his day to let me know what's up in his world. Really appreciate that. But then the next message I get is a general message from Board Game Geek, the overlord there for their site, and they apparently noticed these messages I've sent out, and maybe it was like a dozen or so, and proceed to tell me that they're going to delete them all, and they're going to do this because if I want to contact these designers, I need to do so directly. Well, I kind of thought that's what I was doing, but apparently I'm wrong. And I get it. Okay, I get it. We can't all bombard these designers with individual questions regarding what they're doing. But at the same time, if they're busy or they don't want to answer, hey, they can ignore it. They can delete it. They don't have to respond. So am I really hurting anybody at the end of the day? I don't know. I don't think so, but whatever. So a lot of these guys I was hoping to get a response from, just anything, a little tasty morsel of some future, like I said, project that they're working on that hasn't gained mention yet. Hey, I'm providing a format for them to get that out there. I mean, in a sense, this is what I'm doing, really free advertising for various game companies and designers, and it should be recognized as such, and not just me. A lot of these podcasts and things, they are free formats for designers and game companies to advertise, and I'm sure they realize this. So now this may be old news, and actually, let me back up, and I'll get more into this in a second. But so I called MMP, right? Thinking that I would get a hold of somebody there, anybody, the janitor, anyone, and talk to them and get like any information, anything that I could get and share it with you guys. Well, I get a voicemail, and that's to be expected, I guess. And I leave a message, right? But they're not going to get back to me, so I'm not holding my breath, and I would advise you to do the same. You go to MMP, and they're doing great things, but for the love of God, they've got like blogs on there that their guys have been doing or not been doing. And I don't know if these guys have been updating what's up with what they're doing somewhere else, but these blogs are like ancient. They're petrifying and turning into stone because they're getting so old, and they don't update these things. And I don't know where you got to go. Maybe Consum World or what, but the blog sites on that MMP site are just really in poor shape, and then so you're not going to get much information there. And then I did call Academy Games. Like I said, I'll get into that in a second, but I call Academy Games expecting to talk to, if anybody, I'm probably going to get a message, right? Or a busy signal or an operator saying, what do you want to buy? Well, Uwe himself answers, and this is the guy, Uwe Eichert, or Eckert. This is the guy who has designed a number of games. He's the guy. He's the face for Academy Games. He's the voice. He's the designer. He's the Conflict of Heroes guy, okay? And he answers the phone, right? And I'm kind of stutter stepping over myself because I don't expect this, and I'm picturing him in the throes of some intense game design, and here I have called to him and interrupted him, and he's like mid dice throw or in the middle of amending some rule, and all of a sudden, here I am feeling ultra intrusive, and but he proceeds to tell me about a game called Fief, which is spelled F. What is it? F-I-E-F. Yeah, Fief. You can look that up on Board Game Geek. Now, it's not up my alley, not my thing, but that's not to say other people may not find that interesting. He seemed very enthusiastic and forthcoming with information regarding that. So, Fief. But talked to him and asked him first off about there's this solo expansion kit for Conflict of Heroes, Awakening the Bear, that has been in the works for a while now. If you go to the Academy Games website, it's listed on there. Still no release date. Been that way, as I said, for a while. Asked him about that, and he said, well, let me give you a background on it first. It's been in development for over 3 years with highly reactive AI. This AI is based on the most modern emergent behavior and agent-based logic programming systems. And there's a little video on there, and it's on YouTube as well. And for those of you that haven't seen it, Uwe relates a story that his son was finishing off his master's degree in biomechanical engineering, and specializing in DNA structure building, when he informed his father, Uwe, that the current status of AI in the solo module, namely giving certain units certain orders and programming, was outdated. His son proceeds to explain the use of emergent logic, which is used to model T cells attacking viruses and things. So back to the drawing board goes this solo module. Uwe hears all this and totally redoes it, redesigns the module. And as a result, gone is the action point tracking system. Any onboard fresh unit that takes an action, and depending on the cost of this action, now you reveal an order card which determines if the unit is spent. Basically, this does away with the counting. So, for instance, while probability-wise you will most often be able to fire again, there is no guarantee this will occur. So when is this thing coming out, right? So I talked to Uwe and I asked him about it, and he says it's being translated. And now I'm not exactly sure what he means by translated. Does that mean like I don't know? He's German, so is this thing like out in other languages and not yet in English? I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. But he says being translated and expects it to go to printer by end of the month. So those of us that are anticipating this can expect to get our mittens on it in January or early February. Then I asked him about First Men In, which is the up-and-coming Conflict of Heroes release, the artwork for which is being used to portray this particular podcast. It covers the 82nd and 101st USA Paratrooper landings in Normandy. And he says the rules are being finalized. The map is being repainted. So maybe this summer. But definitely we won't be seeing this until after the Guadalcanal game for Conflict of Heroes, their Pacific Theater entrance into the Conflict of Heroes game. And then, yeah, he mentioned the Thief game. But was very cool to call and actually talk to him, as he has done so much. I really enjoyed that. And we have now, as I was started to say earlier, this may be old news, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway because it's interesting. ASL has Red Barricades 2, which is a sequel to Red Barricades. It's being made by Charlie Keebler, called Red October, and will reportedly connect with the original, making possible a campaign nearly twice as large. And it will include a campaign game, of course, 7 scenarios, and of course one of those will use both maps, but this should be really something. And I think if you go to Consim World, plug in Red October, you may in fact, if I remember right, I got to look at some of the early map art that they're working on for this, and should prove to be yet another tantalizing ASL release. As for when we can see that, who knows? And that was one of the things I wanted to ask MMP about, and find out when, if ever, Hekapele is coming, the finished module for ASL. We've all been waiting for that for quite some time. It has now become a thing of a legend, conspiracy, and mystery. Because is this thing real? Will we ever see it? What's up? We may never know. So just have to leave that on the back burner and let it simmer. Winter Offensive 2014 is coming up. For those of you that have gone to this before, well, you can go again. And I've never been. It's for ASL, for those of you that don't know what it is. And they have been, as my understanding, playing other games, and will continue to do so, maybe expand a bit regarding other games, but it is primarily for the ASL minded. And this will be January 16th through the 19th at the Comfort Inn and Convention Center in Bowie, Maryland. Now, why am I mentioning this now in November? Because I imagine that thing will, I don't know if it will sell out, but if you want to get a hotel room there, it's always better to do it sooner than later. Don't do that thing where you wait till the last minute and you go to this thing every year and then you can't find a room to stay and you're sleeping in your car, or worse, you don't go. As I said, I've never been. I would love to go someday I hope to. No self-respecting aficionado of ASL can refuse to go to one of these, and I hope to do so at some point. Then that leads us to pre-orders, and MMP has the Mighty Endeavor new edition, which adds the Eastern Front, so now you can play both fronts. And Last Stand, the Battle for Moscow. Now that's been up for a while. I don't know what the holdup is with this, if nobody is interested or nobody's willing to pre-order it, but we need pre-orders for this because it looks good. Masahiro Yamazaki, who gave us such greats as Red Star Rising and Stalingrad Pocket. This is his love child. And honestly, I think we should support it and pre-order it and bring this thing to fruition because it looks good. And he has done good stuff in the past. Königsberg 1945, which uses the award-winning game system, used in a victory loss and a victory denied. I own both, have played a victory loss, and that game is, I don't want to say simple, but it isn't complicated. It's elegant and a great game. It plays wonderfully. Would recommend that to anybody if they haven't played a victory lost. It's good stuff. But this Königsberg 45 apparently will be with will have new rules for air units, refugees, atrocities, which is interesting. I'm not really sure how you would work that into a game, or if you should, but they will have atrocities. The Volkssturm will make their appearance, and even the Admiral Hipper cruiser will make a cameo appearance in this game. So that's MMP. Academy of Games, I already told you about Uwe and his game, the solo module, etc. First Man In. New from Marshall Enterprises is Le Bataille de Leipzig 1813, which recreates this pivotal battle in which Napoleon fought desperately to defend his Confederation of the Rhine from the combined forces of the Sixth Coalition. Let's see, whose Albion-oiled noose was poised to strangle the last vestiges of the French Revolution from Europe. This thing is going to be scary huge. 22 by 34 full four-color maps covering the scenes of fierce fighting during the Battle of Nations. Forces are represented by more than 2,500 four-color counters, okay? So get your counter clippers ready and be prepared to clip 2,500. What is that times 4? That's how many corners you're going to clip. And informational markers. This is the largest Labatt game to be sold directly to the wargaming community since the 80s. The grand old 80s. Different time, eh? An era of excess, if I do say so. This will be a one-time limited print run of 400 copies, and there will be no reprint offered. Pre-order price, a hefty $180. I will not be ordering this game. That is completely out of my tax bracket. Pre-order started shipping on October 4th, so I don't even know if you can still order this thing. It's worth a try, but you may have missed the boat. Gettysburg 150 from Worthington Games. GMT has from their Made the Cut section, which involves games that are in art and final development. They have the Hunters, Conson Press, Solitaire Tactical Level World War II submarine game, Field of Fire 2nd Edition, which makes me happy because I completely missed the first one. Flew under the radar with me, and I've seen YouTube reviews of this game, and it looks cool. So I will be getting the 2nd edition. Can't wait for that. Both Commands and Colors Napoleonics Austrian and Prussian armies will become available at some point. The Austrians will be made available first. And if I buy this, oh Lord, that means spray painting a whole army, Austrian army, and basing them, and I do not look forward to that. So I may not get that. Operation Dauntless, company level game of battles near Khan in mid to late June of 44. Mark Moczicki, I'm sure I've butchered his name thoroughly, Mokszzycki, the guy that brought us Red Winter, that guy. Is coming out with the third expansion for the Panzer game system, which will be known as Drive to the Rhine, among other things. He's got that coming out. So, new releases. Strategy and Tactics issue number 284 has Jackson's Shenandoah Valley campaign, which is loosely based upon the Twilight's Last Gleaming 2 rule system from Strategy and Tactics number 225. And it simulates the movement of Mr. General Stonewall Jackson's army into the Shenandoah Valley in 62, raiding the Union forces and allowing Jackson to move out to reinforce General Lee's forces outside of Richmond to participate in the 7 days battles that decisively defeated the Union Army of the Potomac. And then M&P has Lincoln's War, has Kickstarter fulfillment, shipping soon for that. Okay, I think I forgot to mention that. Against the Odds magazine, which is, for those of you that don't know, Against the Odds, go to their site. They have some great magazine games that are, it's like a strategy and tactics type deal. They release these magazines and then come out with a game in each one, and we'll do a full historical review of the game. And, well, they have issue 41 is what they're up to now. And they have Circle of Fire, The Siege of Chom, 1942. Low complexity area. Impulse game a la Storm over Arnhem, but includes a hallmark of later area impulse games, the sudden death mechanism to end turns unpredictably. This is by designer Michael Ranella, and this is the gentleman that brought us Breakthrough Cambrai, which I have not played, and a bunch of other games for Against the Odds. The game includes a full-size area map produced directly from aerial photographs, situational maps, and 176 large counters. Easy to learn, quick to set up, and fast to play. Circle of Fire is both a great introduction to the area impulse system and a great introductory conflict simulation game. Listed as 2014 as far as releases go on Board Game Geek. And interestingly enough, not listed at all on NWS. They have a whole little section there that you can order Against the Odds magazines from, and they don't have this listed at all. And then when something's coming out, they usually list it on there, even though you can't get it yet. So it's odd that this thing's supposed to be coming out, but NWS doesn't even have it listed yet. They only show issue 40 available. That's the latest issue there. So that's that as far as new releases and pre-orders. Certainly enough to keep you busy there. So yeah, what's new with me? Well, as I said, I I picked up an iPhone, and it is my first iPhone. And I have to say, I am so far behind when it comes to tech. I am Mr. Analog. I use a computer because I have to, and it don't go much beyond that. But yeah, the iPhone thing, this could prove interesting, and I say that because obviously it offers a whole new format in the realm of gaming, iPhone as well as iPad, and that relates specifically to Shenandoah Studios, who have the Battle of the Bulge game out. And when I was picking up this phone, my brother repeatedly hounded me and asked me if I was going to download the Battle of the Bulge game app, and I probably will. Okay, I'll download it. I'll give it a shot because I want to support these guys and what they're doing. But I have said it before, and I will say it again. I just am not a computer game guy, and I think I mentioned last episode I was afraid that I would like it too much. But also, there's something to be said, and I hold this dear. There's something to be said for playing a conventional war game, because when you're playing a computer, I understand you can just focus on strategy and tactics and play. The computer does the rest. But with a conventional war game, it takes a lot to play it because you have to be not only the player, you have to be your opponent, and you have to run the game. So there's a lot going on, and to be able to do all that is something anybody should be feel proud doing because it's not an easy thing. And so yeah, I may give Battle of the Bulge a shot, or I may wait and get the what is it, Roads to Moscow, I think, their East Front game. I may wait and give that a shot, but I want to give them some money and support what they're doing, and but that's about as far as it'll go. That will not be my gateway game that starts a whole flurry of computer games. I just ain't that guy. What else? I got some quick tips for you, and I don't know how this is going to be received, but I'm going to do it anyway. And the quick tips for this show is how to sound like a grognard. And when I say that, I mean grognard, as many of you probably say that incorrectly, the way I have said it for a long time, but it is not grognard. It is grognard. And you can impress your friends with these little tidbits of knowledge I'm going to give you. As I said, if you want to sound like a grognard, then you need to say grognard. Another thing you might consider in an attempt to impress your friends and neighbors is when talking about a war game, you not resort to cavalry in describing your cavalry, because he may become confused and wonder why you have suddenly interjected religion into the war game you are referring to. So that is cavalry, not Calvary. And finally, we have Bob Wire, which probably has led to the belief that some gentleman named Bob was the person that invented Bob Wire, but this is incorrect too. It's barbed wire, and they call it that because of the little barbs that are on it. So yeah, some quick tips for you, and hopefully you will amaze and impress your fellow gamers. Moving right along, I'd like to say something about another podcast, and that would be the Two Half Squads. I don't believe I've mentioned this podcast yet, but I have listened to it a number of times, especially in the early days. I haven't listened to it much since, not because of anything they are doing or not doing, simply because I just haven't. But the Two Half Squads are a ASL only podcast, and there's a lot to be said for that. They talk about nothing else. They only talk about Advanced Squad Leader and anything related to that. And they are up to over 100 episodes, so hats off to them. And if you haven't listened to one of their episodes yet and are a fan of ASL, well, you have to do that. That's just how it works. So that and Blitzkrieg Legend is moving right along, and hopefully I will have that wrapped up soon and can move on to the next thing. Another little odd tidbit of information I came across this past week. I found a quote that I thought I'd share with you guys. Amateurs will talk about tactics while professionals talk of logistics. So for any new starters out there that are wargaming, bear that in mind, because that is just jam-packed full of truth. Tactics and even strategy are all fine and dandy, but without proper logistics, you're done for. As I learned with scenario 6.3, I believe it was, last podcast, you got to be able to supply the movement and ammunition of these armies, or they aren't armies. And at least with the South scenario in Blitzkrieg Legend 6.1, there seems to be an abundance of supply each turn, and that is good for me. But yeah, bear that in mind, and hopefully it will help you in your gaming. So, what else do I have left? I have a confession to make, by way of purchase. Now, I mentioned in the last podcast that I am a completist when it comes to ASL, and I will never buy third-party products when it comes to ASL. I've broken that rule, and I must say I'm glad I have broken it, because there is this thing called Kampfgruppe the Shield of Chom. And the two half squads in an episode they have called, I think it's called No Place Like Chom, they talk about this, and, rightly so. It deserves attention. This thing is, as I said, third-party project, released by Le Franc Terrier, which is a French company, a French party, and they've released a number of things. They have a magazine that they release every so often, and this thing, no offense MMP, but the ASL Journal, it gives it a run for its money. So anybody interested in that, give it a look-see. This thing is beautiful, and it is beautiful for a number of reasons. It's beautiful because you don't see, for whatever reason, winter boards in ASL. Now, maybe there's some of you out there that don't want to see them, but for those of us that do want to see them and appreciate them, here it is on a silver platter. Let me go into the history of it first, and then we'll go into the look-see of it. Because, as I said, in that episode of the two half squads, they give it a nice review, and I don't want to repeat what they've already said. So I want to focus more on the history of the event, which I think they neglected to do. But the Chom Pocket was the name given for the encirclement of German troops by the Red Army around Chom, south of Leningrad, during World War II on the Eastern Front, from the 23rd of January of 42 until the 5th of May of 42. A much larger pocket was simultaneously surrounded in Demyansk, about 100 kilometers or 62 miles to the northeast. These were the results of German retreat following their defeat during the Battle of Moscow. Now, at the small Chom Pocket, 5,500 German soldiers held out for 105 days straight. The pocket was supplied by air, but was too small for planes to land. Therefore, supplies had to be dropped in and recovered by the German defenders. And apparently, Hitler took confidence from this in supplying, or thinking he could supply the Stalingrad pocket, because the supply of this pocket worked. But and also, as an aside, it was not as popularly believed. Goering that said he could supply the Stalingrad pocket. I think he wasn't anywhere near Hitler at the time, taking care of other things elsewhere. But a runner-up to him had told Hitler, "Yes, mein Führer, we can supply the Stalingrad pocket, no problem." I don't know if he was in shock and awe at having been presented this this feat, but told Hitler he could do it, and went home, basically did some research, probably was able to re-grasp his senses at not being in Hitler's presence, came to sobriety and decided that this, in fact, would not be feasible. Went back to Hitler, told him so. Hitler would have none of it. He continued to believe that it could, in fact, be supplied. This gentleman later killed himself, not Hitler, who also killed himself, obviously. The guy who told Hitler initially that it could be supplied, he killed himself. Now, I don't know if he killed himself because of this. Certainly that is a lot to weigh on your mind, thinking that you doomed an entire army. But probably other reasons as well, if not, completely something else going on in that man's life. So just an interesting aside. The puzzled-together German units trapped at Chom were mainly part of the following. Well, you had 218th Infantry Division, Reserve Police Battalion 65, Infantry Regiment 553 of the 329th Infantry Division, parts of the 123rd Infantry Division, the Jagd Kommando 8, and 3rd Battalion of the Luftwaffen Field Regiment 1. Hauptmann Albert Biker was awarded the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross on 20th of March 42 for his brilliant command of the defense of the GPU Ruin in the Pocket. He was killed in action 5 weeks later in Cholm, 4 days before the Pocket was relieved by German forces. Wow. In July of 42, the Cholm Shield was awarded to the German defenders of the Pocket upon the suggestion of General Major Theodor Scherer, similar in appearance to the Damask Shield. Scherer was personally awarded the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross with oak leaves by Hitler himself for the command of the defense of Cholm. And Cholm was eventually liberated by the Red Army on the 21st of February 44. Members of the Reserve Police Battalion 65, a police unit from Gelsenkirchen, were questioned after the war by the state prosecutor in Dortmund for their involvement in alleged ethnic cleansing in Eastern Europe. The unit was found to have taken part in a minimum of 5,000 executions and a large number of deportations to concentration camps. Among them was also the hanging of a young girl in Cholm during the siege. So, very interesting event to portray game-wise, and I don't know how often it has been portrayed. I mentioned earlier Against the Odds magazine coming out with their version of a Cholm game, and we have this one. I will be playing this and reporting on it. I'm not sure when, but at some point, and we'll definitely let you know the details. And but yeah, this thing is just beautiful. The box, from the box it comes in, to the art, to the packaging, to the historical booklet that comes with it, to the maps, and then there are both winter and spring/summer maps, because 105 days it covers 2 seasons, and both those are represented on the maps. Counters, comes with its own counters, and a rules booklet. I mean, they spared really, literally no expense when it came to the production of this thing. I don't even know how they could afford it, being a small third-party enterprise. But they pulled it off successfully and in grand fashion. The thing is not cheap. As I mentioned earlier, I believe, been selling things on eBay, and I thought I would take some of the money that I made and pump it back into something I didn't have. And this is definitely something I've been eyeballing for a long time. But yeah, so broke my rule and bought my first ASL third-party product, and I must say so myself, it is a hell of a first entry into third-party products. So, Kampfgruppe, the Shield of Cholm, if you can find it, I highly recommend it. I think there's one still on eBay, and there may be one for sale through Noble Knight Games, which leads me to my next section. Where the hell do you buy these things? Because sure, there's GMT, and you can go there and buy their newest whatever, and M&P, and you can buy their newest. But what about the games that are not made anymore, that are out of print? What about those? Where the hell do you find those at? Well, obviously there's eBay, and people are listing stuff, new stuff daily on that site. So I would check there first, and I have purchased many a game on there. But also, what else? Troll and Toad, I think, has a bunch of games that you can purchase, and I've purchased Hube's Pocket from them, in fact, back in the day, and was a happy customer when I got that. I haven't been to their site in a while. I don't know how well they keep up with inventory and stuff that they get in, but also Noble Knight. They have a number of out-of-print games, and they're not cheap, but hey, if you want something and you can't find it and they got it, you do what you got to do. So that's for the out-of-print. And then, you know, you got your, like I said, your newer stuff is relatively easier to find. Also, there's Board Game Geek. You can go there and find a game, you know, just plug the game in and pull it up and see if there's anything for sale. I have purchased many a game via Board Game Geek. I've never been ripped off. I know some people are reluctant to go anywhere other than eBay, but I've purchased maybe half a dozen games now through Board Game Geek, through individuals, and I have not been ripped off. And these are all people of good integrity. I mean, they're members of this site, and to rip somebody off would not be to their benefit. I mean, word would spread fast, and they would be shunned and shamed, and at the least, and never be able to sell another game again. So these people are trustworthy, and as I've said, I've purchased a number of games with success and satisfaction. Um, as far as newer things go, yeah, other than going to the company itself, there is an NWS online, and I think some people are hesitant to talk about this place, but the cat's out of the bag. Let's admit it. People know about this place, or they're gonna. So if you want a game that's coming out at an affordable price, probably the most affordable price anywhere, and I'm saying this in all sincerity, NWS Online can't be beat. Now, I'm not getting paid by any of these people. I don't work for any of them. I'm just sharing what I've learned gaming myself. Bought many, and I mean many, a game from NWS Online, and can't say enough good things about them. I've seen some posts regarding them, people upset with something or other. I'm not sure why that would be. I've never had a problem with them. Once or twice I've had something get held up because they didn't have it in stock and they had to get it. And I think one of those times the owner, Chris himself, actually called me on the phone and said, hey, look, we're taking care of this. We appreciate your business. We'll get this to you as soon as we can. And just gave me a heads up on the status of my order, which I thought was fantastic. And then I think the second only time something got held up, it was because MMP had some things on back order that they hadn't released yet to companies. And when that shipment did finally show up, Chris had inserted a free game. I think it was Circus Minimus, which I thought was great, and really appreciate that. Thanks, Chris. So, a number of places you can go. There's Wargame Depot. I think there's cool stuff, but primarily I go to eBay, NWS Online for newer stuff, and then if there's something that's out of print that I can't live without, then I'll hit like Board Game Geek or Noble Knight Games. And when I say Noble Knight, I mean noble is in nobility and knight is in knight in shining armor. So, and there is one last place that I am going to share with you, perhaps reveal to many of you for the first time. I had thought about keeping this a secret, but as the gentleman that owns it has been so nice to me over the past few times I've ordered from him, I thought I would help him out. But Enterprise Games is run by an older gentleman named Don Pauly, I believe, is his name, and he runs that out of Indiana. And I've talked to him on the phone a couple of times. He runs with his car to game conventions or estate sales and picks up lots of war games, buys them wholesale, and sells them. Now, a lot of these games are out of print, and they're priced fairly. Maybe if you talk to him and ask him, he might give you a certain percentage off or free shipping based on what you get, how much you get. But he's treated me well, and like I said, rather than keep it a secret and tantalize everybody, and maybe it's more well known than I even realized, so it's probably not as much of a secret as I like to think it is. But Enterprise Games, and when I first found this site, I don't even know how I found it. It might have been by accident, looking for something that I just had to have, And this site comes up, and I thought, is this legitimate? Is this, or is this site even still? Does it still work? Does it still function? It looked like something from like the CompuServe era or something when the internet had first started. The way it's set up, it is just so dated looking, and I thought, there's no way this thing's legit. And I couldn't even figure out how to order anything on it. So I think what I did is I finally found a phone number and called the dude, and he wasn't there. It was like their house answering machine for their family answered, and I thought, what the hell is this? But I didn't quit. I tried again, and I got a hold of Mr. Pauly. And yeah, it's legit. I mean, all this stuff is in stock, and he has it for sale. And I've bought a number of things from him. It's because of him that I have DAC 2 and a number of other things I can't think of off the top of my head. Maybe I think I got Roads to Leningrad from him. And yeah, but he's helped me out with a number of things. And you might, if you're looking for something and can't find it, go to Enterprise Games, and Don Pauly is the name of the gentleman that runs it. So there you go. You heard it here first, or you already knew about it. Either way, a new place for you to try, perhaps, and indulge your habit, as it were. So with that, that might be it. If I've left anything out, I will mention that in future podcasts. And I'm trying to do these, as I said, once a week, but for some reason that is not able to happen. Well, obviously you will realize that when a week goes by and I am not around. So hopefully I can keep doing them on time. And that part of the reason, too, that I forgot to mention I started doing these is, as I said, I have my favorite podcast that I listen to, and I guess I just get impatient. I want to hear more from Guns, Dice, and Butter. And I have to say, Doctor, please get that new episode up. You have tormented us with the announcement that the recording was done and all you had to do was mix it. But that was almost a month ago, and we're still waiting. So, poor us, right? Have some mercy on your fans and release that thing, because we want to hear it. And I understand, not everybody needs to or even should want to do one a week like I am attempting to do, because, what you risk doing is repeating yourself and boring people, and it's not as special if it comes out every week as opposed to once a month. So I understand all that, but wow, once a month sure seems like a long time when you got something you really enjoy and you got to wait another month to hear it. So yeah, that should be about it for this episode. It has gone a lot longer than I thought it would go, and the last one was long. So I'm going to cut this thing short, or cut it long rather, and say that next episode we'll have all the usual stuff. The top 10, the stagnated top 10, which seems never to move or budge, or nobody seems to leapfrog anybody. And maybe I'll attempt to crack the code behind that and see what is up with that. Of course, any more new releases or pre-orders, etc., you'll be the first to know, as usual. And I may do something like a personal top 10 Hall of Fame games, or and go into some depth regarding each of those games. Maybe a history and a review of each one. And what else? Wargame conventions. Something needs to be said about that, because there are a number of conventions, and maybe somebody should sift through them all and then differentiate between each one, which ones are worth going to, which ones are worth staying home and missing, where are they, when, etc. So go into something about that, and anything else that I decide to talk about, obviously, I will do so when that time comes. So, as usual, thank you for listening, and to reiterate, feedback is greatly appreciated. So again, thanks for listening, and keep gaming.